Hello and welcome to the Tillage Edge with me, Michael Hennessy. This is your regular update for all your tillage news and advice. The EU Commission's Farm to Fork and Biodiversity Strategy includes a target of reaching 25% of agricultural land under organic farming by 2020. When we look at our European neighbours, most countries have a much higher area dedicated to organic production than Ireland. For example, in Sweden, around 7% of all cereal area is in organics. Organic tillage isn't widely practiced in Ireland. However, there is a substantial demand for certain products in Ireland, especially food-grade oats and feed for livestock. In the past month, the Department of Agriculture has opened an organic farming scheme, and I'm delighted to be joined on the Tillage Edge by Elaine Leavy, an organic specialist in Teagasc, to discuss why tillage farmers should consider organic production in the coming years. You're very welcome, Elaine. And I first want to ask you, what makes a good organic tillage farmer?
Yes, Mike, that's a good way to start. I'm actually going to answer that question with a number of questions. When somebody's thinking about converting to organic cereals, they have to ask themselves these kind of questions. First of all, can they see themselves growing a crop without relying on pesticides and chemical fertilizers? Because when I start talking about organics in a group, that's one of the first things I ask people is as regards what is organic farming mean to them. So you need to really, as a farmer, you need to ask yourself that question, because that always comes back when people are thinking about converting to organics. Also, you need to look at, do you have a source of farmyard manure, slurry, compost on the farm or near to you, available to you? Secondly, then thirdly, you have to look at this whole area of incorporating a grass clover break into your rotation, because rotations is a key part of organic cereal production. And as we all know, what rotation is, a sequence of crops that are grown over a number of years. And in organics cereal, you're not allowed to use chemical nitrogen fertilizer. So the whole area of fertility building in the form of a grass clover break is very, very important. So those are the kind of just three key elements to be thinking about, considering before you convert to organic cereals.
So when we go back to think about, what makes a good organic tillage farmer, from existing people that you know of
Yes.
already, they very much incorporate obviously all of those three. But in terms of in your mind, what makes them really good as organic farmers?
I would say they're a increased attention to detail. You have to be very, very good in attention to detail. So you have to plan, because in organic farming, we always say there's no quick fix solution. So you have to plan. So you have to think about your rotation. What is that going to be made up of? You can't do what you're doing maybe at the moment, continuously cropping with the same crop. So the key element is in relation to the rotation and to the planning of your crops. Also, as organic farmers tend to look at the whole area of nutrients and feeding the crop. They look at actually feeding the soil to feed the crop rather than feeding the crop. So the soil fertility and what's going on under the ground is very, very important, and to help that the best way possible with following within the organic standards that you have to farm to. So again, I suppose the main I suppose challenges you would have to look at is the whole area of the good rotation, about your nutrient management, and also the whole area of weed control. Again, as I said at the outset, you can't use those sprays. So how are you going to manage weed control?
So is it possible then to be a completely tillage farmer in an organic system, or are animals essential in the system to generate some of that nutrients you were talking about?
It is possible, Michael, to be what's called a stockless rotation. It is certainly possible in an organic cereal system. I suppose you have to look again. I know I'm repeating myself, but you'll have to see where you can source nutrients, what is available to you, because organic farmers can take in organic manures from non-organic farms. There is a number of regulation that you have to adhere to, but that is a possibility. Again, the planning, you need to know what crops, your fertility of your land you're starting with, and then planning your crops. So yes, it is possible. It is not as easy, of course, where you have a situation where you have a mixed enterprise, where you have nutrients being produced, and you have, if you're in a clover situation as part of the fertility building, you have your animals available to eat to it, but eat that forage. But certainly, yes, it is possible. But again, you have to know what you're going to be doing and be very familiar.
So in a sense, Elaine, you're growing a number of crops within a rotation to feed the other crops that you're going to sell.
Yes, exactly. So you need to know, your crop off takes. Nutrient management planning would be very important. Exactly, Michael. You need to know what your nutrient level is, what crops will take away nutrients, what crops will bring in nutrients, and all the rest. Yes, and help with the whole area.
Well, it sounds like, Elaine, then quite a big mindset change going from conventional to organic in that sense. That
Absolutely.
Not every area of ground is going to be for sale every year, if you like, or the produce, and that's not going to be for sale every year.
Absolutely. Very, very important. And while it might, the attitude is very, very important. Absolutely. And it's critical that you have the right attitude going in, because again, look at, not everything is going to go right for everybody, and you have to have the attitude. If it doesn't work, to get up and try and go again. Yes, certainly attitude. You nearly, as I would say to people, in ways, you go, when you decide to convert to organics, the land has to go through a conversion phase, but you have to be converted yourself, that you know exactly yourself what is involved, and investigate and get acquainted with what adjustments will be needed, and talk to other organic cereal growers, etc., and consider and investigate what you're going to be doing is very important.
And you mentioned a conversion of the mind to a degree, but there is a conversion phase, isn't there, between conventional and organic? You might maybe just describe what that's about, what the transition period is, and what farmers do or how they manage in that transition period.
Let's say I decided in the morning that I was going to convert to organics. That's the path I'm going to take. What your land undergoes is what's called a conversion phase, and in most cases that conversion phase is for 2 years. So your land is undergoing conversion for 2 years. At the end of those 2 years, your land is certified as having full organic status. And in a cereal situation, 24 months after your conversion stage starts, that will be your first full organic crop being grown. So it's a 2-year conversion phase. I suppose, how does people get involved in it? In relation to what is involved, if you decide to go to convert to organics, or in this case an organic cereal enterprise, you have to register with an organic certification body. In Ireland, the competent authority that ensures that the organic regulation is adhered to by all producers and processors is the organic unit of the Department of Agriculture, and they are based in Johnstown Castle. And they have designated organic certification bodies to carry out an inspection and licensing at a farm level to all organic farmers. So there's a cross-reporting mechanism between the certification body and the organic unit of the Department of Agriculture. So in Ireland, you have 2 certification bodies that carry out inspections and certification for land-based systems, and you have the choice of the 2. So the first thing is you contact one of the 2 organic certification bodies. There are the Irish Organic Association and the Organic Trust, and they send you out an application pack, and you make an application to them, and then they will inspect and certify you as you start your journey in organics, and they will always be there to regulate and inspect you, and that's part of the process.
Okay, so we go back a little bit. So in 2021, I decide, or a farmer, let's just say, decides he's going to get into, he or she is going to get into organic farming. So the crop that's produced in 2021 will obviously have no chemical pesticides or fertilizers, etc. That crop then comes to be sold at harvest. That can't be sold as organic.
No,
That needs to be
absolutely
sold
not. No.
as conventional.
Yes,
Okay, and then we
conventional.
roll and then we roll on another gear in 2022. Similar story.
Yes.
Still can't be sold
No.
as organic. Has to be sold as conventional.
It'd be in conversion. It would be
Okay.
regarded as an in conversion crop then. Yeah.
And the next year, then 2023, then is the first year that that farmer can sell that output as
Yes.
organic. Okay.
So if I start on the first, if a farmer starts on the 1st of April 2021 in conversion, it's 21, 22, 23. So it's a crop sown after the first year conversion, 2 years conversion. That will be their first organic crop. Yes.
Okay. And we'll come to maybe some of the monetary stuff in a minute in terms of some of the supports that are available. We'll get to that in a few minutes. If we just go back to the sales part of it, what sort of markets are out there at the moment in terms of the organic produce, in terms of grain?
We did figures in 2018 as regards estimating what the actual demand for cereals within the organic sector, and estimated that there's, with all the sector demands from all the livestock processing, etc., there was a 3.5 times more of what's being produced at the moment is required for the sector. So there is a great demand for organic cereals presently. You're looking at demand from the side of farmers themselves, livestock producers looking for cereals to feed their animals. You're looking from a processor point of view, the likes of Flahavans, for example, they are continuously looking for more organic grain growers in the form of organic oats for their porridge market. So there is a great demand for cereals within the sector, and that will be one of the main challenges from in relation to the sector as a whole, is the demand from the livestock enterprises for organic cereal being grown in the country, because it's just not there, and it's causing a challenge in relation to having to import in cereals and concentrates on the farm.
And when you talk about that, so for the likes of Flahavans, let's say, for instance, they've organic oats. That's a fairly easy supply chain, I suppose. You deliver down to them, and they take in and they do the processing from that point of view. In terms of the other, because we obviously an organic farmer can't grow oats every year in the same land. It's got to be rotations, right? You mentioned before. So correct. There's other whether it's barley or whatever else is kind of coming through the system. In terms of the organic farmer getting a market for that, is there a number of merchants that take that in, or is it generally farm to farm sale in smaller lots? How way does that work?
The sector, the way it is at the moment, I've said the opportunities are there. So you would have a number of farmers that are setting themselves up and are trading farm to farm, smaller quantities is certainly a way of the cereals, because that would be the most common one that I would be familiar with as regards from the cereals being produced. There's also a number of farmers, another type of cereal gaining popularity is this whole area of combi crops, where you are growing a cereal with a combinable pea. There's more of an interest in that being grown also, and that is trading farm to farm also. So that would be the main ways that it would be going.
So there's a bit of marketing to be done by any of the organic tillage farmers, I suppose, as well. But as you say, if the demand is there, it's kind of an open market.
It's there, but you need to, yes, the demand is there, but like as you said, you need to, that would be one of your like we would be talking about when you're talking about the steps to organic conversion. You need to assess the market, what market you're going to go into, and what compliance is needed in relation to that market. But there is definitely a demand out there for cereals.
Okay. So just the last question before we kind of get into the organic scheme that's going to be opened up there. In terms of you mentioned already that there's the Department of Agriculture have an organic unit there, and you also have the Organic Trust and the
Irish Organic
Association as well.
Yes.
Are all if you're involved, obviously you'll be involved with the department and one of those trusts. Are both of those people coming to the farm to inspect what you're doing, and does that happen regularly, and is that a bit of an onerous task?
And In relation to inspections, the organic certification body will inspect a farmer every year. They get an annual inspection, and they will have record keeping to keep. They have a record book to keep. So you will get an inspection from your certification body every year. Now there are a small number of on-spot inspections that may take place, and then the department will do an audit on a certain number of farms every year. You might never see somebody from the department. It depends on who comes out of the hat in relation to that audit. Is it onerous? Okay, yes, you have to keep records, but I was actually talking to a farmer recently who's very well in, and he said, we're keeping records anyway, so it is more records, but it's not, I suppose, it's not too much more than what you'd be doing anyway. So it's kind of really what you're doing is keeping a record of your sales, purchases, inputs, land use, etc. So it's not, I wouldn't say it's too onerous, but it has to be done in a nutshell.
I'm sure the majority of farmers have, being good business people, have no problem at all keeping records, because of
Yes.
the old saying, if you don't measure it, you can't change it, or something along those lines.
Absolutely, yes, absolutely. So it's a way of record keeping. It's also keeping an eye on what's going on as well. It's showing on paper what you're doing outside.
So
as well.
The government have a new scheme opened up. It's the first time it's opened in the last 3 years or 4 years, I think. So it's opened up recently.
Yes, it opened up on the 1st of March.
Yeah, you might maybe tell us just a little bit about that. What a farmer has to do, what sort of payments are there, how long they last for, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just in March, a new organic farming scheme was opened up for new entrants, and the budget is in the region of 4 million, and it's expected to that will allow between 400 and 500 new entrants into organic farming. In relation to the process of how do I apply for the organic farming scheme, as we said earlier when we were talking, the first step in relation to this is to register with one of the organic certification bodies and make an application to them, and then when they get your application in, what they do is they notify the organic unit department that you have applied for as an organic operator, and that will allow you, then the department will open up the window on agfood.ie, and then you make your application then for the organic farming scheme on agfood.ie, and that all has to be done. The closing date is the 30th of April. So that's the process for that. Also, when you're doing your BPS application, you will be ticking that you're applying for the organic farming scheme, and you will declare your parcels of land, what they're being cropped and in conversion. In relation to the payment rates, there are payment rates. We mentioned that when you go into conversion, your 2-year conversion, so it's a higher rate of payment in the first 2 years of the scheme. Just since we're talking about organic cereal producers, organic tillage producers with an area of 6 hectares or more, in the first 2 years, those with less than 20 hectares will get €260 per hectare, and that is and greater than 20 hectares and up to 60 hectares is €220 per hectare. So you get that for year 1 and 2, and then after that, for the remaining term of the scheme, your full organic status, your payment will get to €170 per hectare. If you actually have a farmed area greater than 60 hectares, each hectare is 60 hectares in the first 2 years, and for full organic status, then after then you get €30 per hectare. So that is the nuts of the application process. When will farmers know? Again, if it's oversubscribed, there is a ranking and selections criteria put in place. And then in relation to whether when you will find out acceptance into scheme, it's expected farmers will be notified early in October in relation to whether they've been accepted into the scheme. They will be notified then. Also, part of the application process is the completion of a 25-hour organic farming principles course, and we in Teagasc deliver those courses. You have until the 1st of April next year to complete that course. So we'll be running those courses from early summer onwards.
So, Elaine, you get into the scheme for 5 years.
Up to 5 years, yeah.
You pay those various amounts of money, and after that,
Yes.
then your payment stops. You get no more payments for being organic, only for what comes from the marketplace. Is that it?
Yeah, in the 5 years. But however, if depending, like, let's say a large number of organic farmers in the organic farming scheme completed their contracts in late 2019, and they were given transitional arrangements to continue on. So if there's a scheme there when you're finished your initial contract, you may be able to roll onto an initial contract. So your initial contract is up to 5 years in the scheme.
Okay, so there's a potential of those
payment,
payments staying there in the longer term, just rolling over from one scheme to the next.
Well, they may not be similar because, as you know yourself, the rural development plan, new rural development cap fundings are not in place. So we have to wait and see what changes will be made. But you'd be expecting and hoping that you won't fall off a cliff edge, at the end of this, that there will be something there for farmers to continue. That would be the hope and expectation.
And would I be right in saying that if you are in the organic system, there are other supports for capital equipment?
Yes, there's TAMS, which is similar to TAMS, the Organic Capital Investment Scheme, and it's similar to the ordinary TAMS, except there are specific specific pieces of equipment. So, for example, you have flame weeders, you would have spring tine harrow, chain harrow, seeder. So there's specific pieces of equipment that registered organic farmers can apply for. And then there is one more scheme that's currently under review, and is the off-farm processing. So if you're not selling just grain, if you're doing some off-farm processing, there's a grant there. It's currently under review, and I've been told that the minister will be making an announcement on that scheme in the near future.
Okay, so just two final questions. From your knowledge of farmers who are, let's just say they're predominantly tillage, from everything you've said, you're kind of saying, look, you need to be a good farmer, whichever way it is. But from your knowledge of those farmers, are they as profitable or more profitable or less profitable than current tillage farmers?
They can be. Look at again, it's a small sector within the sector. They are profitable, of course they can. But again, the simple answer is yes, but it depends on a huge number of factors. It depends on their land quality. It depends on their attitude. It depends on the price they're getting for their crop. It depends on their yields. So there's a huge number of factors involved in relation to the profitability. But yes, they are profitable.
Okay. So then for conversion, and the final question to you, Elaine, for conventional farmers at the moment, the scheme is currently open. And for those farmers who maybe want to get into organic farming, if you had one or two key pieces of advice to leave them with as part of this podcast, what would they be?
I suppose, first of all, it comes back to them, the need to ask themselves, if I'm going into this organic system, can I produce my crop with those couple of key questions I asked at the start? And I would also we've talked about it for half an hour, but I think talk to other organic cereal growers, talk to organic farmers and see how they're doing, because it's a key, it's a big change. And there has been a lot of successful people are doing it. So talk to those and see how they're getting on, and get the boots on the ground as regards the production system and what's involved in relation to their approaches to what they're doing.
Okay, Elaine, that's brilliant. Thank you very much for all of that. It's certainly worth considering for some farmers out there. So thanks for your time, and we might come back to you again during the season and chat a little bit more about organic tillage farming.
And thank you for your time, Michael.
So that's it for the Tillage Edge, and my thanks to Elaine for joining me on the podcast. The next episode in the series of crop agronomy webinars is on Tuesday, April the 6th at 11:30 a.m. For more details, go to www.teagasc.ie/events. Don't forget, if you like this podcast, then recommend it to a colleague or friend, and always rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so you never miss an episode. And for more farming news and information, go to teagasc.ie. I'm Michael Hennessy. Thanks for listening. I'll be back next week with more tillage news and advice.